Good evening, welcome to ITV News Calendar.
Yes, hello, good evening. Thank you for joining us. Here are tonight's main stories.
Schoolboy stabbing. A teenager goes on trial accused of murdering 15-year-old Alfie Lewis, who was killed in front of friends and primary school youngsters.
Alfie's mother wept in court as the jury was told whilst paramedics tried to save her son, the boy accused of killing him walked home.
Also tonight, police make an urgent appeal to find two men following an acid attack in York. The victim is recovering in hospital after emergency treatment.
In sport, striding into the record books, Bradford's Emile Carrès wins bronze in London in what was only his second ever marathon.
I definitely didn't expect it. I thought there might be an outside chance if the race played out like it did, but yeah, I definitely wasn't expecting it.
And ready for inspection, the Queen makes her first visit to Catterick as Colonel-in-Chief of the regiment in which her father served. A 15-year-old boy has gone on trial accused of murdering another teenager in Leeds, an attack which happened in front of primary school children and friends of the victim.
The mother of Alfie Lewis wept in court as the jury heard how he was stabbed to death. And as he lay dying in the street, the boy accused of killing him walked home.
Katie Oscroft has spent the day at Leeds Crown Court. And Katie, what's been said about the day Alfie was murdered?
Well, Ian, if the sheer horror of what happened that day wasn't enough, it was all played out in front of primary school parents and children on the school run, teachers and secondary school pupils. Many of them saw Alfie Lewis being stabbed and witnesses heard him say, "What are you doing?" Alfie Lewis's mother was in the public gallery listening to the harrowing account of her son's last moments. She sobbed as the court was told how when Alfie lay on the ground with passers-by and paramedics trying to save him, the boy who's on trial sitting a few feet away from her walked home dropping the knife he'd brought from his own kitchen on the way. He was arrested at home just over an hour after the school bell signalled the end of that day's lessons.
Katie, the court heard from some very young witnesses today. What did they have to say about what happened?
Well, Lara, the judge had warned the jury that they would hear from some very young people. Friends of both the defendant and Alfie Lewis will give evidence, some about a previous fight between the two boys. We heard from one teenage girl today who arrived at the scene soon after leaving school, and she saw Alfie lying on the ground and she said, "Alfie, don't die on me, wake up." She also said she didn't know of any long-standing grievance between the two teenagers.
This is an unusual case because of the age of the defendant and the victim, Katie. So does this change the way the court is being run?
Well, yes, it does in a way. We're not naming the defendant or any of the young witnesses because of their age, and also the barristers and the judge are not wearing their formal robes and wigs because the main players in this distressing chain of events are still children. There's Alfie Lewis, the boy who died in front of his friends. He's just 15, and the defendant, who is now 15, he's not sitting in the dock. He's sitting at the back of the court next to his father. Now, he denies murder. He says that his actions that day were out of self-defence. This trial is expected to last for around 2 weeks.
Katie Oscroft reporting live there from Leeds Crown Court. Thank you.
Well, next tonight, police in North Yorkshire are searching for two men wanted in connection with an acid attack in York. Today, they issued an urgent appeal for help in finding them.
The attack on Friday left a man in hospital requiring emergency treatment for extensive burns to his neck and back.
Well, Helen Steele is at the scene for us tonight. Good evening, Helen. What more can you tell us about what actually happened?
Well, residents living here on Fossway in York say they woke to the sound of sirens in the early hours of Friday morning as police and ambulance responded to what they called a violent incident. It's believed a corrosive substance was thrown at a man in his 30s. Now, he was taken to hospital with life-changing injuries. An arrest was made later that day of a woman in her 40s, and she has since been released on bail.
Well, police are also looking for two men, and they took the step of making a direct appeal to them today, didn't they, Helen?
Yes, police believe there were two men directly involved in the incident who later fled the scene and have yet to be found. Now, they are 29-year-old Joshua Anthony Strickland and 26-year-old Robinson Peter Fitch Binks. Now, some progress has been made on that. Two arrests have been made during their search for those two men, but police have made a direct appeal to them. And that said, Joshua and Robinson, if you see or hear this appeal, it's time to do the right thing and hand yourselves into police. As every hour passes, you are only making it harder for yourselves. Also, anyone suspected of helping you to evade arrest will also be arrested and face prosecution. Now, as you can see, police have now left the scene. They are very keen to say it was an isolated and targeted attack, but nonetheless still worrying for people who live here.
Helen, thanks very much indeed for bringing us up to date with that story live from York. Thank you.
You're watching Calendar. Thanks for being with us tonight. Still to come before 6:30. In sport, Barnsley Chop, Tykes boss Neil Collins is sacked. It's just one game to play as the club rolls the dice in their final promotion push.
And we started the new working week on a fairly cloudy and chilly and fairly damp note. Can we do any better over the next few days? All the detail a little later on.
Next to more worries over the safety of smart motorways in our region. New data's emerged today showing that the technology underpinning them failed almost 400 times across the UK in less than 2 years.
Well, on some occasions, signs, signals, cameras and radars were off for days at a time. Well, Ben Basin is here with more on this story for us. And Ben, first of all, remind us just what smart motorways are, first of all.
Well, Ian, they're roads where the lanes are controlled by overhead gantry signs. The controversial bit is that in some of them, the hard shoulder has been completely removed and replaced with a live lane, meaning some drivers who have become stranded after they've broken down. Well, now, there is technology in place like radar and cameras that's meant to detect when there's a stationary vehicle in a lane so that it can be closed. But an investigation today has found that that technology lost power on 397 occasions between June 2022 and February of this year. In fact, in the most recent 6 months of that period, there was a power outage almost every single day. Well, earlier I spoke to Claire Mercer. Her husband Jason was killed on the M1 near Sheffield when he had to stop in a live lane. She says these latest revelations are terrifying.
To see it laid out like that on paper as a known problem going back several years at least, it defies belief. Why are we allowing this to continue? I mean, I came from a manufacturing background, and if you suspect there's something wrong with equipment, you lock it off and don't use it at all. Never mind, let the public carry on using it and don't even tell them.
But Ben, this isn't the first time, is it, that concerns have been raised about smart motorways? We've heard it before.
We have indeed. Claire has been campaigning to get smart motorways scrapped ever since Jason was killed in 2019. And since then, a number of coroners have also raised safety concerns about smart motorways. It led to the government pausing the rollout of new smart motorways and implementing new safety measures on existing ones, including new technology. But these findings today show that one stretch of motorway there were no working signals or sensors for 11 days in a row. Well, I've been getting reaction from Rotherham MP Sarah Champion.
I mean, I have whistleblowers who are actually in the control rooms who get in touch with me because they are scared for people's lives when these outages happen. But nothing prepared me for the regularity of this system failing. I've also heard that in some control rooms, they're just saying, please do not have this system in our area.
So that's what Sarah Champion had to say. What have National Highways had to say?
Well, they insist that smart motorways are still, in terms of serious or fatal casualties, the safest roads in the UK. But they do say that there's more work to be done in terms of making everyone feeling confident enough to use them. Well, that's an argument that we've heard before, and I'm sure we'll hear again from National Highways, especially with today's findings. These calls to scrap smart motorways are unlikely to end anytime soon.
Ben Basin, thank you very much for bringing us up to date. Thank you. More of the day's news, and several people have been injured after a group of men were seen fighting with machetes in Leeds. Police were called shortly before midnight last night about the fight, which happened on Burley Hill Drive, When officers arrived, those involved had left the scene. Some of the men have been tracked down, including 2 with serious head injuries and others with stab wounds. Enquiries are ongoing to trace the other men involved and injured.
Well, a bit of a gear change here, but welcome back, Ian, to the programme. It's nice to have you back.
It's lovely to be back.
Yes, what did you get up to on your week off?
Well, the weather was terrible, so I'll be having a word with Kerry about that shortly. But I just took an opportunity to do lots of jobs. I needed to go to the dentist. I even went to the hearing aid centre to get a new one of these. Look, here we go. Look, this is the earpiece.
Put it back in. You'll need it.
This is the earpiece we use so we can hear our director and producer when we're on the air.
Yes, they're very useful, actually. Where would we be without them? They are a lifeline. Of course, hearing aids themselves are a lifeline to many people as well in everyday life.
That's right, but campaigners are calling for VAT on hearing aids to be scrapped to make them more affordable if people choose to buy their own. James Webster reports.
Being able to hear what's happening around us can be something many of us take for granted. But for Patricia from Doncaster to hear the same things, she needs to wear hearing aids. She's needed them since she was a young child.
Before I left school, my mother and father bought me some hearing aids because I'd finished school and I was going out into the big world. And it was a hearing world, obviously, and the hearing aids that they bought me were fantastic. So I can hear doorbells, if the tap's running, if people leave the tap on, the dog barking, cat meowing, all those everyday little things that, deaf people miss out on, I can pick up.
It's estimated 1 in 6 adults have hearing loss in the UK. 6.7 million could benefit from hearing aids, but only 2 million people use them. Some are eligible for basic hearing aids on the NHS, but anyone who pays privately for better hearing aids has to pay VAT, something campaigners think is unfair and needs to be changed.
When people cannot hear, or when we don't support them to hear as well, it really disconnects them from people. Fundamentally, we all believe it's an unfair tax, an unjust tax, and it's completely out of sync with the evidence on hearing loss and the impact of hearing loss on individuals.
Right, so we're just going to do the calibration of the hearing aids. You're just going to hear a loud shushing noise.
Hearing aids can cost anything from £350 to £3,000. Campaigners say they should be exempt from VAT if a doctor decides they are clinically essential. This audiologist from Harrogate often sees how much they transform patients' lives.
It's amazing. To watch that transformation of someone, especially if it's a grandchild that they're now able to hear or a loved one. Super important, and I still get the hair stand up on the back of my neck now. VAT is an added financial burden, which makes these essential devices a lot less accessible.
In response, the Treasury told us hearing aids are usually dispensed free of charge to NHS patients, but on those bought privately, added, we keep all taxes under review and value representations from stakeholders as part of our development of tax policy. Representations those we've been speaking to say need to be heard. James Webster, ITV News.
Now then, let's get some sport and news now of, an end-of-season sacking.
Zero Accounting Software sponsors ITV Regional Sports Report.
And it's good evening to Chris, who's with us with this story which broke today and took a lot of people by surprise. Neil Collins of Barnsley.
It did take a lot of people by surprise. I think what will surprise people is the timing more than anything, with just one game of the season left to go. But Barnsley's form has been wretched over the last few weeks. It's fallen off a cliff. This defeat at Blackpool on Saturdays was their 5th game without a win, and they're now hanging on to a League One playoff spot by their fingertips. The fans haven't been convinced by Collins' style of football either. Coach Martin Devaney will now take temporary charge. Hopefully, he can get them over the line as well.
Well, shall we move to action actually on the pitch then? And Leeds United, they've got a big week, haven't they?
Huge week for them. Season-defining week, you could call it as well, Lara. 2 games, 6 points at stake. They're at QPR on Friday night, but it's Middlesbrough tonight. Now, last week's defeat at home to Blackburn left Leeds in 3rd spot. Only a win tonight will see them jump back into the automatic promotion spots, and manager Daniel Farker wants his players to focus on the positive season they've had rather than their recent blip.
We're knowing that we're playing a fantastic season, but right now we also want to use it in order to play really the perfect season to promote back to the Premier League and want to do this. We're all highly motivated. This is more like an intrinsic pressure that we have, and this is what we want to do.
So that's the race to go up. The battle to stay in the Championship, well, it's just as fierce. Now look away, Huddersfield Town fans, but drink it in, Sheffield Wednesday fans. For the first time since way back in August, Wednesday are out of the relegation zone. That's after a massive win at Blackburn yesterday afternoon. Now check this out, from the sublime Josh Windas's exquisite finish to the ridiculous, a howler of an own goal from Blackburn keeper Ainsley Pears. It finished 3-1 to the Owls. Well, if that left him red-faced with embarrassment, many Huddersfield fans were red-faced with anger after the Terriers were trounced 4-0 on their own turf by Swansea. They could be relegated next weekend if they fail to beat Birmingham, who were held to a goalless draw at Rotherham in Steve Evans' first game back as Miller's manager. Evans sporting a sombrero, just as he had 9 years ago during his previous spell.
Oh, you'd look good in a sombrero, I'm sure. Now then,
Cover
lots of twists.
red, wouldn't it?
Absolutely. I didn't want to say that.
No, I said it.
Well, yeah, you did. Lots of twists and turns to come. But what about Sheffield United? Because that's not good, is it?
It's not been good all season, has it, Ian? You've got to think that it's probably curtains now for Sheffield United in the Premier League. And it won't just be the defeat to Burnley on Saturday that hurts, but the manner of the defeat as well. Remember, Burnley have struggled this season too, but it was them who showed the intensity, desire and work rate to pull off a 4-1 win and pretty much condemn the Blades to relegation, going down with a whimper, sadly. Now, the story of the season could be Doncaster's spring revival. It's now 9 straight wins, the first time they've managed this since rationing was in place. But goals weren't in short supply at the Eco Power on Saturday. 4 in the second half saw Rovers come back from 2 goals down to beat Barrow. They're now on the brink of the playoffs, and that's not out of the question for Bradford either. The Bantams have won 4 of their last 5, including Saturday's 3-2 comeback win at Walsall. And the pressure's off for Mansfield after they clinched promotion last week. The Stag Party raging on with a 2-1 win over Gillingham. Elsewhere this weekend, the Sheffield Steelers beat Belfast 3-1 in the Elite League playoff final in Nottingham yesterday. Having already won the Challenge Cup and league title, this playoff victory means they've completed British Ice Hockey's Grand Slam for the first time since 2001. And thousands turned up outside the Sheffield Arena late last night to celebrate with the team. And finally from me, Emil Keres from Bradford has qualified for the Paris Olympics this summer after finishing 3rd in yesterday's London Marathon. His time of 2 hours, 6 minutes and 46 seconds was the second fastest of any Brit to run the marathon, behind only the legendary Sir Mo Farah. Emil said he didn't even know he was in the top 3 until near the end of the race.
So I came around the last corner and then the finish line announcer said, "Here comes Emil Keres in 3rd." So that was the first I'd heard of it. I definitely didn't expect it. I thought there might be an outside chance if the race played out like it did, but yeah, I definitely wasn't expecting it.
And can you believe that was only his second ever marathon? Insane,
no,
isn't it?
No. I mean, he looks like he's built for running marathons as well. You'd have thought he'd have done a few more.
You'd think so, but it takes a lot of practice, doesn't it, to a marathon?
And a lot of time.
It does, yeah, but what a great effort. Great to see him in the Olympics as well, isn't it?
Totally.
Like a whippet out of a trap.
Yeah, something like that. Yeah, thanks, Chris. Thanks. Well, the ITV Evening News continues at 6:30 and there'll be more of our Bradford Marathon man on that. Here's a look at what's happening with Mary Nightingale.
Coming up on the ITV Evening News, will the first Rwanda flights take off in 3 months' time? Rishi Sunak says planes are booked and nothing will stop them. An historic day in the US as the criminal trial of former President Donald Trump hears opening statements. P&O Ferries agrees to change its work practices after pressure mounts following an ITV News investigation. And the runner from Bradford, whose impressive London Marathon record secured him a place in the Paris Olympics. Would you join me for those stories and more at 6:30?
But we told them about that first, didn't we?
We got there first, yeah.
We did. Now, finally, it was a day of pomp and ceremony at Catterick Garrison as the Queen went to inspect the troops and hand out medals.
Yes, she met with service personnel from past and present And as Greg Eastill's been discovering, it was a visit with deep personal significance to Her Majesty as well.
A new Queen taking charge of one of this region's oldest regiments on a day that would prove a truly sentimental journey. Camilla is now the new Colonel-in-Chief of the Royal Lancers, based at Catterick. Her dress, the palace said, a nod to their uniform. Her brooch handed down from the late Queen Elizabeth, the regiment's last Colonel-in-Chief. But Camilla's connection to this regiment goes far deeper than that. Her father, Major Bruce Shand, served in the Lancers, winning a military cross for his distinguished service during World War II. Inside, Her Majesty was shown his original military tunic, along with a letter he'd sent home. Both items she'd never seen before. The fascination and emotion all too clear.
To see something anybody see something your dad's written 80 years ago while he's fighting a battle, I think it's a pretty emotional moment.
You could tell she was genuinely stirred, yeah?
Yeah, I think so. I think it was almost a tear in the eye, but she's a professional at the end of the day. So
she is a Lancer. Her father was a Lancer, so she's coming home. This is her family, and we are very, very lucky to have this relationship with her.
Those strong feelings, it seems, entirely mutual, as the Lancers presented her with a keepsake.
It's an old part of the regimental silver. I hope I haven't. It's absolutely lovely, and as I said, I'm so proud to be the Colonel. For many, many years I've been hankering to do it, and I know wherever my father is now, he'd be saluting us all today.
This military daughter laughing and chatting too with other army families. It might have been lost on some of them, but certainly not on others. Proud day for everybody in this regiment, surely.
Yeah, very proud day for all of us.
You won't forget this day for a long while.
No, I don't think we will, no.
She's, like you said, one of our own, so welcomed her. I think it's been a lovely day.
She asked me how I was, and I asked her how she was, and then she spoke to Emma.
About the weather. She said she'd come from Scotland and it was raining in Scotland.
She feels like one of the gang already, doesn't she?
Yeah, she seems lovely.
3 cheers to Her Majesty the Queen! Up, up! Hooray! Up, up!
This new Colonel-in-Chief now firmly part of the family then, as far as this North Yorkshire regiment's concerned. Greg Eastill, ITV News, Catterick.
And didn't she look smart?
Very smart,
As
yes.
always.
Yeah. Now, you might remember on Friday we told you about 9-year-old Cooper Wallace from Chesterfield, who, how could you forget actually, who was competing in the European Girls Screeching Championships in Belgium this weekend. Well, this was him yesterday, doing his best to impress the judges.
I've seen it all, and it worked because he won. Cooper was the youngest and first ever overseas competitor to take part in the unique event. He scored an impressive 92 out of 100 in the junior category and was the highest scoring contestant in the championships. Well done to him.
Congratulations. I wonder if Kerry can do that kind of impression.
I can't do that, but I didn't even know it was a thing. My nephew used to do it when he was like 2, when we used to go to Whitby, and he was brilliant. Maybe not quite as brilliant as Cooper, but yeah, I had no idea. We could have, oh my goodness. Yeah, you won't hear that kind of noise coming from me for sure. Today is World Earth Day, where we're encouraged to sort of promote or demonstrate our support for the planet. And I like to think that every day is Earth Day, but this time of year especially, I like to sort of get those sort of pollinating plants into the garden. Not very encouraging today, was it? Pretty much looked like this across most parts of the region today, and it was really cold. In Leeds Weather Centre, Farsley, Rob Brooks' data from the last 4 months on the 22nd of each month, 8.5 today, so that's the coldest so far this year on the 22nd of the month, so pretty chilly. But you've been off for a week, haven't you? And you've been looking at a bit of nature, haven't you?
Yeah, well, the weather was awful, but it was all right yesterday.
It wasn't awful all of the time.
It was. So I went out in the garden yesterday and look what I found.
Yeah, well, we thought they might be babies, didn't we?
I did.
But they're not. They're actually adult-sized ladybirds. They're the 16 spots and apparently only 3 millimetres in length, which is against the bog standard 7 spot, which is about 6 to 8 millimetres. So yeah, if you see one of those, it's a adult ladybird. But will they get any sunshine, and will we? Here's the forecast.
Good visibility on the horizon.
TIRI sponsors ITV Yorkshire Weather.
Yes, it is still April, I promise. And with that unsettled day across the region today, it did mean that yesterday we hung on to those amazing skies across the region for a little bit longer. A big thank you to Matt Patton for this one across the Worth Valley. And as we head into the next couple of days, it's not all bad. Variable amounts of cloud. It will be fairly cool and breezy, but no significant rain, it looks like, until possibly the second half of the weekend ahead. So all the high pressure and the clear skies out to the west during the course of the day, allowing this system to sink its way southwards from the very early hours of this morning and continuing to journey south overnight tonight, so generating a lot of cloud. Some rain and drizzle around at times, misty and murky. There will be some clearer spells. Middle part of the night may be hanging on in the west as we head towards dawn, and it's under those clearer pockets in shelter from that breeze where temperatures will be hovering just above freezing. But out towards the coast there's a breeze, a lot of low cloud and some dampness as we head into the early hours. There are sun times 5:46 and 8:24 as we head into Tuesday. Don't be too disappointed with the morning. It will be cloudy and damp for many. It will be breezy, feeling quite chilly along the coastline, but for everybody from the morning into the afternoon, into the evening, it's an improving story, drier, brighter with a decent dose of sunshine. If you can get out of the breeze, it won't feel too bad in the sunny spells, but temperature-wise, we are a little below the average by a degree or two. Now, as we head through into Wednesday, west is best for sunshine remaining for much of the day. Out towards the coast, it will feel cold with that northerly, a mix of sunshine and showers, and then variable cloud thereafter.
TIRI sponsors ITV Yorkshire Weather.
There you go, better than today, tomorrow, but not really that hard. It wasn't very nice, was it?
Thanks, that's inspiring.
Thanks for telling me about the ladybirds, appreciate it. That's
You're
it,
welcome.
I'll see you at 10:30 for our late calendar. For now, good night.
Bye-bye. Bye.